Turks, Jake Hugler, shout out to all of you guys. And Anna Kasparian, in a way, she is on John's shirt.
She is. I wanted to make sure that she was here, at least in spirit or at least in shirt. This is available shop TYT. How cool is that? How cool is that?
Yeah, that's
shop TYT.
Anti-religion rant there that is memorialized on that shirt, shoptyt.com. Okay, so big show ahead for you guys. We have one of the most hilarious QAnon catfights you've ever seen in your life. If you thought QAnon turning on Mike Flynn was good, you were A, correct, and B, just apparently tasting the entree. Any sentence using the word taste in that context is weird. Nonetheless,
the more you say the word taste, weirder it gets.
But an even bigger conservative fight in the insane right-wing circles today. And Trump, of course, joins the fray as well. All right, so lots to get to. John Iadarola has the news.
I do have the news, or at least a fraction of it. Let's talk about it. What does Kyrsten Sinema want in the reconciliation bill? Everyone's still just so excited to find out, and we thought we had gotten a little bit closer to an answer just a few days ago when it was reported that she wanted to cut $100 billion from the reconciliation bill, specifically targeting climate funds, and specifically some climate funds intended to provide what's called climate resiliency to communities that are going to be more greatly affected by the changing climate. So there, at long last, months into this is what she wants. Or does she? Because within like 48 hours, they pretended that they didn't. A member of her comms team tweeted, neither Senator Sinema nor our office have requested or demanded such cuts, nor have we ever heard of any such demands. Once again, the New York Times relies on anonymous sources and gets it flat wrong. Do better. To his credit, he didn't refer to them as the fake news. But anyway, so Cenk, really, we've got a lot of things that we're gonna focus on here, but at least it felt like finally she wanted to cut something. We know that if you cut like $1 trillion, $2 trillion out of this, that's gonna be cut. They're not denying that they wanna make those cuts or that climate funds might get caught in the obstructionist crossfire. They just wanna pretend that they're not specifically calling for this to be cut. But before we really get into evaluating that, do you even believe what they're saying? Why would we believe what she or a member of her comms team at this point are actually saying about any of the specifics of the negotiations?
No, generally with any politician, especially corporate-backed politicians, I don't believe a word they say. In law, there's this thing called a rebuttable presumption. It's not hard to understand, and in the case of politicians, there's a rebuttable presumption that they're lying. It can be rebutted, but my presumption is they're not telling the truth. On the other hand, have I seen the New York Times get stories wrong? Oh yeah. Okay, but here's what's important. Somebody's floating this idea. Somebody leaked it to the New York Times, full well knowing that what was gonna happen. It could be her team, it could be other Democrats, but somebody put their toe in the water and go, what if we cut $100 billion from climate change? And what they got back was no, right? Certainly from the left and from most Democrats. And that's why you see Sinema's office backpedaling here. Did we put our toe in the water? No, our foot's hurt. That's why we went to Arizona. So again, to me, it doesn't really much matter if it's them or not. The only way that it would, John, is like, am I shocked and chagrined to find out she might not be for fighting climate change?
Former Green Party member.
Yeah, of course I'm not surprised by that. No, hence, since my expectations were already at rock bottom, I agree with you. The fact that she put out any proposal would have been good news, not bad news.
Yeah.
And when you look at the $100 billion they were looking to cut, I thought, they're gonna cut some of this stuff, John, they are, right? And so, to me, the most damaging of the cuts was the recharging stations.
Yeah, I'm gonna give us a full rundown of some of what whether they're specifically calling for it to be cut, they're calling for a huge chunk of the money to be cut, and this is what's going to be in that. So again, the fact that they're not specifically calling for it is not only needlessly secretive, it's also incredibly cowardly because they do want this to be cut, whether they'll admit to it or not. On the New York Times, maybe one reason they have to use an anonymous source, and just one, is she's a US senator who refuses to let us know anything of what she's advocating for or against. And I think a nice little example of that is She didn't even rebut their reporting, someone on her team did. Even this, when they're finally engaging, she can't be a part of that. Probably because, as we'll soon find out, she was busy, on that old dusty trail training for the Boston Marathon. But let's talk about what could end up getting cut. Before we return to the protests against her, the substance of what she is aiming to do, seemingly, is cutting things like this. So, Democrats are expected to protect a proposed $150 billion clean electricity program, as well as about $300 billion in tax incentives for wind and solar power and electric vehicles. However, they may slash, and when they say this, they mean they have sources that are telling them that this is being planned, up to another $200 billion in other climate programs as part of an effort to win over Sinema and Manchin. And again, you don't have to do that unless that's what they're pushing for, whether they admit to it or not. Now, party leaders have previously promised to safeguard two significant climate change programs costing $450 billion in total. The Clean Electricity Program, which incentivizes electric utilities to use wind, solar, and nuclear, and a general climate package of tax incentives meant to encourage the use of clean energy. But there are several other climate-focused programs that could theoretically be cut in order to shrink the bill. Things like these provisions aimed at helping poor people adapt to the effects of climate change, as well as a $30 billion green bank that would fund construction of community solar panels and electric vehicle charging stations. I assume that's part of what you were referring to earlier.
No, there's another provision that specifically deals with the electric vehicle charging stations. The green bank, I think, is awesome and necessary. It is one of those things that I think might be able to stand on its own and is almost inevitable at some point. I'm being way too hopeful, okay? But guys, there's an important part of this, which is that we've got to get just past like this rolling fascist coup that the Republicans are doing, because if we can get that out of the way, then we have a battle between us and corporate rule, and that's a battle we are definitely going to win in the long run, because the younger voters are so overwhelmingly on our side that they stand almost no chance. So that's why when I see green bank, I think, I know everybody's gonna think it's way too optimistic, but that's gonna happen, right? So now, mind you guys, this is all in the context of if you have to cut something. To the point that John is making, well, wait, if Sinema and Manchin are denying this, or in this case, Sinema specifically, do you agree? If you agree, the other 48 senators agree, the House agrees, we're gonna have a deal right now. So don't tell us you agree when you obviously don't, otherwise we'd have a deal.
Is it too much to ask that in America, you could have someone ask a senator, do you want the green bank for $30 billion or not? But that is too much. You can't get that. She doesn't go on TV, so she's not being asked by those reporters. You go up to her in the streets, she won't answer questions. Whether you're an activist for different groups, Lauren Windsor's trying to talk to her, you do not get to know whether she supports the green bank. At that price, at a smaller price, you don't get to know. 4 months. And it might be cut, and it might be because of her, but you don't get to find out if it was because of her. You don't get to find out about any of this. If it ends up being 2.7 trillion or 2.1 trillion or 1.6 trillion, that is a massive difference that will change the lives of tens of millions of Americans in a variety of ways, some of which we can describe, others we can't. And you do not get to find out what effect she had over that. That's absurd.
Yeah, I have at least one more thing to say here, which is that I thought the progressives really had a genius idea here, and it's simple. They said, why don't we not cut anything? Now you might think, boy, what a genius idea. Why don't we just give you everything?
I thought that.
No. There's of course a second part to it, which is, but we'll make it shorter. Instead of a 10-year window, we'll make the bill a 5-year window. Now that's degrees some, by the way, the number is negotiable. It could be 7 years, etc. Right? Now there's some degree of risk there, because what if 5 years later they say, okay, we're not renewing it, and then you've really cost yourself half of it. My God, you've cost yourself half of all of these proposals.
Well, why is that clever though?
Now that's clever because both the progressives and the conservative Democrats all know that once you have these things, you'll like them. So now get a load of the argument that the Manchins and the Sinemas of the world have to make. Well, we don't agree to that, because if people get this, they'll obviously love it. And so then they'll want another 5 years and then another 10 years, etc. Then maybe in a democracy, you should give them the thing that they love and that you know they love. And by the way, why aren't you doing it in the first place if you know and are positive and are in the middle of negotiations insisting that it can't be that we give them this stuff because they will love it so much, right? Oh, it's because you have your corporate donors who say, we know Americans will love it and we don't love it. So you are not to serve your voters. And by the way, these have overwhelming majorities support in Arizona and in West Virginia. You are to serve us, your donors, instead. And that's not hyperbole. That is exactly the conversation happening in Washington right now.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we get to sit here and wonder behind closed doors. You have $30 billion for a civilian climate corps. Hey, how about $10 billion to incentivize rural electric cooperatives to switch from coal to wind and solar? I just wanna know where Manchin stands on the program that gets them to turn their back on coal. I wonder. He doesn't have any incentive either way.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, John.
It's absurd that you can own a coal company and you get to decide, should we use coal or no longer? See, I wonder.
See, that's the one that Manchin is gonna object to the most. Why? Because it takes away his excuses. Because his excuse is, oh, I am worried about coal jobs. But this bill will allow you to keep those jobs and actually have higher paying solar jobs. And the government will finance that transition, that bridge to that, in which case the workers of West Virginia are definitely not hurt. In fact, they are helped. So wait, why does Joe Manchin need an excuse? Because he makes money from coal. So he needs to pretend that he's concerned about jobs. When he can't pretend that anymore, then he's out in the open and he has to admit, which he never will, and there's no reporters that'll ask him at the mainstream media, but he would have to admit, oh, I was just kidding. My voters love it. It would bring more jobs to West Virginia. I'm just greedy. And I don't want to do it because it affects my personal interest, both from my donors and because I own a coal company.
Okay, then I have a controversial idea. I'd like to propose $1 billion. Half of it, 500 million, will go to setting up a massive company to produce solar panels and wind turbines and stuff, and we give it to Joe Manchin. Another 500 million will be set up to buy a massive amount of land in Napa Valley, and we'll give it to Kyrsten Sinema, and she'll get to like stomp on grapes all day long. If it's 1 billion to get the trillions we need, they get all the money they could ever imagine. That's basically what we're doing here. It is about their financial interests. Why not just make it more explicit? Buy him a solar plant and let him rake in the cash and let her live out her dream of being a wine empress.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the bribery is so brazen now. If the government itself did it, it might be more efficient. Obviously, we wouldn't be in favor of that as a principle, right? But by the way, I'm not kidding around. Like, at some point, a progressive's gonna come around who's wealthy and say, you know what, I'm just gonna spend my money. And so, hey, Sinema, Manchin, you guys are servants, right? So instead of serving coal interest and ExxonMobil, etc., here, I'll pay you more. Now you serve me.
I wish.
And they would do that deal in a second. And you serve me, and my wishes are the wishes of the American people. Now go to renewable energy.
Yeah.
I swear to you, they would do it in a flat second. And bribery is legal in America. So, hey, if there's wealthy progressives out there, you should go actively, legally bribe them. I'm not kidding.
That would be great.
They say they're for sale. They go and cut checks after every vote. And they're like, $2,800, give me, precious. You have any idea how easily you could buy them? Just do it and be done with it.
I wish.
And by the way, if people complain and go, oh my God, that's outrageous, money in politics. Exactly, good. Then pass an amendment to get money out of politics. Oh, you don't want to? Then shut up.
Yeah. That's a great one. Okay, well, we don't have those billionaires, so this is what we do have. Activists have been hounding Kyrsten Sinema everywhere she goes, and I wish that the only place they had to hound her would be DC if that was the only place she was going, but instead she's everywhere. She's doing different jobs, she has hobbies. Apparently her medical procedure for her foot went really well because I swear to God, apparently earlier today she ran a marathon. And so a group of 15 different national organizations, the Green New Deal Network, announced earlier that they were gonna follow her to the Boston Marathon, and they were gonna hold up signs like Senator Sinema, pass the full deal. Senator Sinema, stop running, start listening. Senator Sinema, those feet work pretty well, don't they? I made up that last one. And they have apparently done that. You can see a photo in this tweet from the Arizona Working Families Party. I found spreading this, but I don't know if we have access to it. I hope that we do, but they were waiting along the side of the route to hold up signs for her. I'm sure that she didn't engage with them. I hope that at least she saw them. But yeah, it just left me wondering, like, she's got this job teaching courses. She's taking an internship at a winery. She's running a marathon. I always thought that she had her mind towards when she got to retire. I feel like she has retired. She's just living her best life. Damn the whole Senate thing.
Yeah, it must be nice to have several different jobs.
Do whatever you want.
You know, be like, oh, the people's representative. That's a good one. An internship at a winery? Why, does she want to meet Pete Buttigieg?
That's just fun.
Like what? Like what's going? That's insane. She's a United States senator. Okay, so but if you put it in a B-rate movie, that her excuse for going home to Arizona, which was, of course, as we explained to you, there was a giant fundraiser for her, so she was going to collect donor checks. But she made the excuse that she had a foot problem. And then she turns around days later, and you put it in a movie that she runs a marathon. Everyone who read that script would say, come on, that's over the top.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. No one would believe it. This is, even if it's a comedy, it's too much to say. So she's like, oh no, it's not the donors. I gotta go. Oh my foot. Let's run a marathon. Come on, it's absurd. And mainstream media is still calling her an accountant. She laser-like focused on the spreadsheets. She cares so much about getting it right. And she's so meticulous with the math.
Yeah.
I mean, she probably doing math while she was running the marathon. She's like, I'm gonna carry the 7, right? And when they were doing the bird, I thought when they said they were gonna bird dog her for the marathon, I was like, this is next level bird dogging. Okay, this is a known political phenomenon. If you don't know the term, just means to follow someone around and ask them questions, okay? And so I was like, are they gonna run next to her and they're gonna take shifts? Like, I was like, that's kind of badass, right? It's a bit much, but it's like, wow, that's dedication, right?
Yeah.
And you'd get, a bunch of hours with her by the time. But no, they were just holding up signs. And so part of the reason I thought that they were gonna run with her the whole time was because conservatives started flipping out. They're like, how dare they do this to this beloved Democratic senator? Wait, what? Because she's a Republican, she serves corporate donors just like 100% of the Republican Party. So now Republicans are rushing to her defense, not just politicians. Like conservative media is like, they better leave our Sinema alone.
Yeah, and this makes sense for her strategy. All of these Republicans like her now, and so in the future they'll probably support her. No, they don't care. They're still gonna choose a Republican over you, dummy. But anyway, you are right that they are sticking up for her. I think actually we have Laura Ingraham on this.
The mob never sleeps. That's the focus of tonight's angle. The fact is, there is no satisfying the insane left that today's Democrat Party spawned and projects. There's no point in anyone trying to placate them or even paying attention to them, because there will always come a day when you'll fall short of their constantly moving woke goalposts. Now, Kyrsten Sinema should know this by now. It doesn't matter that she's a first, that she wears fun outfits, or that she voted to impeach Trump twice. That's not enough. Now that she's standing in the way of Democrats passing their multi-trillion-dollar plan to fundamentally remake this country, well, she's leftist enemy number one.
She was shocked to find out that it wasn't enough that she wears fun outfits. Yeah, no, it's not enough. I don't think we ever said it would be enough, actually. Why would that be enough?
No, but the right wing is hilarious. The only problem is that people don't realize, or their viewers don't realize they're hilarious, that they're watching a comedy. They really believe it. Oh, and now you can't even satisfy the left with fun outfits. Well, what are we gonna try next?
Yeah.
Oh, now you're gonna make us drink Starbucks every day. They believe this crazy, crazy stuff. All right, look, but my favorite part of that is the mob never sleeps. So let me get this right. Activists who are going to have policy discussions with her. Have you seen the videos? We showed some of the videos on the airport. There's in the airplane. They're talking about immigration and pathway to citizenship and very specific policy discussions at the airport. They're asking about the infrastructure bill. That's apparently a mob. People breaking in to any building, let alone the Capitol, smashing the doors, the windows, hurting, and by the way, killing cops on their way in while they're chanting about executing people is not a mob.
Tourists.
Those are just tourists / Antifa.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. / Patriots now.
Depends.
Right. Depending on what it is, / Patriots.
Yeah.
But a mob of people worried about policy. We can't have it. They got to go to sleep. We already have fun outfits. These people will not be appeased.
Yeah. Has anyone figured out exactly why Ashley Babbitt, Great Patriot, was hanging out with so much Antifa? Nobody's been able to explain that yet. But anyway, and we'll be talking about that more later. Yeah, and also, look, a lot of what she said was totally nonsensical. The idea that we have these ever-changing goalposts. This is like, they did COVID aid and then this. This is all we've had. What are the goalposts changing? We've cut the figure we're asking for so much. The goalpost has been moving, but in the wrong direction. But beyond just that, the propaganda, like I guess it is just more propaganda, but she can't even like fundamentally understand what's happening politically. She said the Democratic Party spawned this far left. They hate every bit of this left. How could she not see that? Like we understand, like Mitch McConnell sucks and the QAnon mob sucks. I don't think that Mitch McConnell spawned it. He may occasionally try to harness it, but we get that these are different things. Like how can you fundamentally look out at the country, the 2020 primary, the 2016 Democratic primary, and not understand how oppositional these leftists and Democratic leadership are?
Yeah, see, number one, we're not either as dense as Laura Ingraham or as deceptive as her, because she, like for example, we understand that the Trump supporters are not at all like Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is a corporate Republican. He serves as corporate donors. The populist Republicans that look up to Trump don't even like big business. They have different problems, and we oppose both of them, but for different reasons. Because one is like, the brown people are the real problem. Right? And the other one's like, no, you're the real problem. Corporations are the answer. Okay.
They also attack immigrants a lot too, but I don't think they mean it as much.
No, they don't mean it at all. They love the low-wage immigrant workers,
true, yeah.
The Mitch McConnells and the corporations of the world. And we understand that there are corporate Democrats and then the real left. So, and these are not hard concepts. So does Laura Ingraham not understand that? In which case she's like painfully ignorant about anything happening in politics. Or does she know that, but she actively lies to you anyway?
Yeah, why not both? Anyway, Kyrsten Sinema, you have at least one defender. Oh, also Bill Maher, so she's doing a good job. Anyway, that's gonna be the first segment for us. When we come back, the big lie still alive. Stay tuned to find out who's pushing it after this.
All right, new members, love these guys. Mike Costin, Stoned Assassin. Would that work? This could be an issue at work. But anyway, Jess Lassiter, you guys are all American heroes. Thanks for signing up and being part of what we're trying to do here, bring honest news and change the country. Now let's go to Twitch. Iron Man gifted 2 subs. Ghost of Toller gifted a sub. You guys are awesome. Blood Raven says 10 months. So glad to be able to show my support. Love everyone at TYT. Right back at you. Kamu Nui writes in 8 months for the cause. By the way, how's Sinema running a marathon with a foot in a soft cast? Training? So it's funny you say that. Our producer, Brad Ehrlich, was just making the same point during the break where he was saying, yeah, wait, wasn't she in a cast at the airport like 2 days ago? No, she's hilarious. Her lies are it's.
She could just heal fast. It's possible she was taking ivermectin or something. And just cleared it right up.
Unless her ankles have tapeworm, I don't think that would help much. But it's almost like she's trolling us, right? Like, oh, I am wearing a boot. I will now run a marathon. By the way, that also goes to show you the sorry state of the media. That's why she thinks, oh, I could mess with these guys. Nobody's ever going to call me out on it.
Yeah.
Right? So at least in the circles that she cares about. Drink That OJ writes in, thrilled to be part of the TYT family. Your balanced coverage of the issues has helped me remain sane throughout these crazy times in which we're living. Love all of you. Thank you. And I've noticed, all the different ways that you participated. We appreciate that. But it is really a sign of the times that so many people write in. It's probably the #1 comment now. Thank you for keeping me sane. That is not a comment that we got for 20 years. We used to get different comments.
It's not.
Right, like even past Trump, the #1 comment we get is thank you for keeping me sane. That is the insane times we live in.
Yeah.
Bookish Dragon says Bezos bucks thanks to EBT giving me the opportunity to subscribe. So I'm sticking it to the billionaire and letting the government pay part of me wanting to make it better. Is it karma? I guess. Well, that's kind of smart thinking a Bookish Dragon would engage in.
Thank you, Bookish Dragon.
We appreciate it. So listen, if you want to know, if you have Amazon Prime, it's free for you guys, but we get the money. That's why they call it Bezos bucks, because Bezos owns Amazon and Twitch. So go to tyt.com/prime and learn how to do that in 30 seconds. And we appreciate it, makes a big difference. Bushido Leader says on Super Chat, brilliant. Cenk just created a plan to socialize bribery. Kinda, I guess. Okay, if they're doing it. Put a couple of thoughts behind it. Ted Cruz Wedgie Dragon writes in, the Afghanistan war cost us up to 10 trillion over 10 years, almost a third the cost of the 3.5 trillion infrastructure costs. Do we get any credit for ending that war? Does that cost get absorbed back into the DOD? Good question. Oh, excuse me, I was drinking my too strong coffee there. All right, it's actually water. All right, Cenk and John with you guys back on TYT. A lot more news.
Okay, let's do it. There was a time when Chris Wallace said he would not put people on his show who supported the big lie, who would not accept that the election had not been stolen. He recently announced that considering that basically all of Republican leadership is still perpetuating that lie, he would have to modify that rule a bit, but he said, I'll bring them on, but I am gonna press them hard. And so we have the first test of that. Steve Scalise, House Minority Whip, was on Fox News on Sunday, asked about the 2020 election. Let's see how it went.
Specifically making this charge that the election was stolen, do you think that that hurts, undermines American democracy?
Well, Chris, I've been very clear from the beginning. If you look at a number of states, they didn't follow their state-passed laws that govern the election for president. That is what the United States Constitution says. They don't say that the states determine what the rules are. They say the state legislatures determine the rules.
But the states all
certified.
certified.
They didn't follow those state legislative.
The states all certified.
Follow those legislative rules. Right, but at the end of the day, are we going to follow what the Constitution says or not? I hope we get back to what the Constitution says, but clearly in a number of states, they didn't follow those legislatively set rules.
So you think the
Okay, so this morning I was very confused about this, that he kept switching between talking about state rules that were allegedly not followed, even though Chris Wallace points out the states certified it according to their rules. So that's state rules. And when are we gonna get back to following the Constitution, which of course is wholly separate from the state rules. So Cenk, I'm honestly not sure exactly what he's saying. I'm not sure that he knows what he's saying. He just knows that he has to project the idea that the election was stolen without saying it explicitly, because that might look bad to some Republicans, but he has to reassure the base.
Yeah, so look, we can break down his silly excuses, but you guys have heard it 1,000 times before. This whole, they lost 60 cases in a row. They have no evidence at all that the election was stolen, but they don't want to tell their voters that because their voters are brainwashed and really on the edge of insanity at this point. So let's break down instead the dynamic of that statement. So number one, he wants to be able to preserve his ability to say later, no, I didn't say it was stolen. I never said it on TV, okay? And I never officially said it. I never said the sentence, the election was stolen, because he's a politician. So he wants to say, well, I don't know which way it's gonna go. And if Trump is run out of the Republican Party or national politics later, and then it becomes like a bad thing to have supported an insurrection against our democracy. And by the way, insurrection, people say about it on January 6th, sure, but much more so, Trump in the White House talking about martial law and using the military and using the Justice Department and everyone threatening to quit because that would be a political or military coup. That was an actual insurrection. So he wants plausible deniability on supporting that. But he cannot say that it didn't happen because he would be ripped to shreds in a primary in the Republican Party if he said that Joe Biden won. Acknowledging reality in a major political party in America now, the most powerful nation on earth, just acknowledging reality will get you driven from the party.
Yeah.
And tarred and feathered. They'll chase you with sometimes literal tiki torches, okay? And so that's why you see that politician weasel there. Like, try to get out of that tight spot with state rights, Constitution, word salad, okay? And let me give it some sort of plausible deniability on both sides. But there's one last element of it. That's why Trump is popular. Because that's how politicians talk, the way Steve Scalise did. Yeah, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I'm not gonna answer your question, and did I please both sides, right? Whereas Trump goes in and goes, yeah, they stole the election. They're robbers. I'm the cop who's gonna stop it. Me good, they evil, they bad, they Satan, right? People go, oh, I like that. Especially Republican voters, they're like, that is really simple. My simple mind understands that, okay? But kidding aside and insults aside, they get the sense that it's authentic. It isn't actually, he's authentically stupid, Trump is, but he's not saying things that are true. But it rings authentic because he's not saying it like a political weasel.
Yeah.
Whereas when they hear Scalise, they go, I don't know which side he's on. He sounds like a weasel.
Yeah.
And that's true.
Yeah, most of them have become very good at not saying something the base will hate, whether it's on the election or on vaccines. You have Scalise with the election, you have Tucker Carlson never saying the vaccine will kill you, don't take the vaccine, but trying to reassure his base continually that they shouldn't, that there's something suspicious about it. And so they like that because it's trying not to offend them. But I agree, they're gonna like the one who just goes full crazy and tells them exactly what it is that they want to hear.
Well, I think what would work, John, is if somebody tried being authentic without lying.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
Well, if they were like, hey, you know what? Actually, you should get healthcare. Every other developed nation has it. We don't, and sometimes your family members die because of it.
I feel like there's a candidate that did that.
Yeah, there was actually two candidates. One ran for Congress.
Yeah.
Senator Nina Turner, and the other one ran for president. They kind of worked together, and people loved them until the mainstream media came in and said they were going to execute people in Central Park. Oh my God. And that it was going to cost so much money that we couldn't afford wars anymore.
Yeah. If you don't like brown shirts, wait until you see the digital brown shirts. Anyway, we have a little bit more of Steve Scalise. Let's see if Chris Wallace can get anything like a definitive statement out of him.
So you think the election was stolen?
What I said is there are states that didn't follow their legislatively set rules. That's what the United States Constitution says. And I think there are a lot of people that want us to get back to what the Constitution says we should be doing, not just with elections, with a lot of other things too. And then there's some people that want to just ignore what the Constitution says and do their own thing. You know, that's been a debate that's been going on in this country for a long time.
But
why don't we just get back to the Constitution? You wouldn't have that problem.
And there certainly can happen. But there are people out there. There was a rally for President Trump yesterday, and a number of people said, Joe Biden's not my president, Donald Trump is my president. I guess the question is, do you think the election, last time I promised, do you think the election was stolen or not? I understand you think there were irregularities and things that need to be fixed. Do you think the election was stolen?
Yeah. And it's not just irregular, it's states that did not follow the laws set, which the Constitution says they're supposed to follow. When you see states like Georgia cleaning up some of the mess and people calling that Jim Crow law, that's a flat out lie. I think most people need to stand up against that sort of thing.
All right.
Yeah, wait, again, what specific state laws does the Constitution mandate for state level control of the elections? I don't know, because he won't say. And while Chris Wallace ostensibly is grilling a member of Republican leadership, he's doing so in like the softest hands way. He's saying, do you believe, rather than, we're 9 months into Biden's term. You guys have had dozens of court cases. You've had audits. None of it has shown anything of what you're saying. Why do you persist in trying to make people suspicious of the outcome? It should not all be about whether he believes. You already know what he's going to say. And he keeps appealing to the Constitution. We should get back to the Constitution. Chris Wallace never says what specifically in the Constitution. Constitution ain't long. It's not Atlas Shrugged. Point to it. What in the Constitution specifically are we supposed to be doing? But he lets him just like wriggle like an eel and not say anything. And so it seems like he's being hard on him, but Steve Scalise never felt any real pressure there.
No, although the conservative viewers will probably see that and go, he didn't say that it was stolen, I hate him. So there's a little bit of silver lining there. But the last thing on this is, he said Constitution repeatedly because that's his talking point. As John explained, he never clarified what in the Constitution he's talking about because it's a talking point. But we talk about upholding the Constitution all the time. So if you're a neutral observer to American politics, you might say, well, the right wing says they are in favor of the Constitution, the left wing says they're in favor of it. How am I supposed to tell? Well, here's one way you could tell. You could read it. And so facts matter, and there is a right and wrong. So the right wing thought, led by Donald Trump, that Mike Pence, the vice president, could come during a ceremonial declaration, reading of what the states have already decided based on their votes, and he could just not read it and declare Trump the president. But the vice president has unilateral authority to wipe away the entire election. Okay, well, you look in the Constitution and you tell me if that exists anywhere in there. I can tell you ahead of time, it doesn't. So I say they're goddamn liars. They say, Constitution, I'm not gonna tell you where it is. But Constitution, the vice president has godlike authority. Okay, well, somebody's right and somebody's wrong. And you don't have to trust us, you can just read the Constitution.
Yeah.
Find it for me, anyone at all, right? So, but they say this, and that's why on January 6th, the people who broke into the Capitol were chanting, hang Mike Pence, because he would not say that Trump became magically president. And by the way, you all know I'm right, because no right winger would tell you right now, oh, that's okay, we don't have to have 2024 election. Kamala Harris decides who the next president is. She's the vice president, so it's over. She could just make a unilateral decision either way.
We have to get some Republicans on that have tried to make that case, and you have to put that to them, because no reporter is gonna do that.
Yeah, isn't it so sad? By the way, look at what John said, and you all know it's true. Whether you're right wing or left wing or anywhere in the middle, isn't it so sad that we don't have a single national reporter who would ask the most obvious question? If Pence can overturn the election, can Kamala Harris? They're both vice president. You guys say it's in the Constitution. Tell us where it is in the Constitution, then great. Kamala Harris has way more power than we imagine. It's a simple question.
Yeah. Well,
but no, it would offend Republicans. It would offend, who cares, you're a reporter? Nope, reporter means just having access to power and then serving power.
That's true. Yeah, and by the way, that's like the most crystallized specific example. But if you are a Republican electorate that in a state votes for the Republican candidate in 2024, you better hope that there's not a Democratic governor or Democratic legislature, because they can just send whoever they want. They don't have to send the actual electors that were voted for. Apparently, that's what we're finding out. Nobody actually believes this.
Yeah, all you have to do is declare that there was fraud. Go to court 60 times and lose every case. Lose every case. It doesn't matter. You just say, Kamala Harris, governor, Democratic governor. We just declare ourselves kings. That's what Trump wanted to do. And these guys are dare to talk about the Constitution, which they actually, Scalise has read the Constitution and he despises it. He wants to turn this into a tyrannical, authoritarian government instead of the democracy we actually are.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. If somehow Tucker Carlson beats Bernie Sanders in 2024, we're just gonna throw it back to Bernie. That's what we get to do. Anyway, I'm just joking. Anyway, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, we have a duel of titans. Lin Wood, Marjorie Greene, who is going to be King Clown? We'll find out after this.
All right, I keep telling you, don't miss the conversation. There's a lot of great guests coming on there, super interesting conversations. Tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, right before the Young Turks, live. Well, I'm taping it today. You'll see it live tomorrow. I can't
You'll be alive when you watch it.
I can't help but be honest. I accidentally said live. I'm like, nah, I gotta correct it. Okay. Anyway, Michael Cohen, former lawyer and fixer for Donald Trump. He's gonna come on and talk about how they used to run scams in the Trump organization, why the Trump hotel lost $70 million. He has inside information. That is gonna be a very interesting conversation. So check that out at 5:30 live every day. That's what I mean by live. It goes on there live. All right, OJam writes in.
We'll do it live.
Kyrsten Sinema isn't old enough to not care about being personally affected by a devastating climate, is she? How narrow is her scope and sense of self-interest for her to not care about this? Now, their only thing is short term, man. Give me the money, give me the winery, okay? I'll deal with climate change later. It's incredible selfishness. Mickey C, the Silver Dragon, made this point. Others that did as well. Sinema, my foot is so hurt, so I went back home to train for a marathon. Yeah, you also have to train for it. That's a good point. You can't just run it.
I've heard.
Yeah.
I just do it, no prep, but most people, you should do a couple weeks of training.
Yeah, of course. JVP writes, some halves of other loaves are more equal than others. Good reference there. Pruval writes in, ask Manchin how much money is worth watching his daughter perform a perp walk on charges of jacking up the prices on the EpiPen medication people need. Guys, one day there's gonna be a really strong progressive in office, and they are going to do carrots and sticks. And parts of the sticks are going to be, look, brother, you got two choices here. One's a good choice where you're the good guy. Other choice, we're gonna show folks you're not the good guy. And there are going to be serious consequences. So I look forward to that day. I think you should too. Occam Taser says, why can't Republicans ever expand on what the Constitution says? That's exactly the point John was making. R. Stone says, Sinema has turned herself into Dr. Blight from Captain Planet. I know I just dated myself. Can we start funding a Justice Democratic candidate to primary her? Well, of course, but give us time here. Let's figure out who the right person running is and how this shakes out. And then Trust me, that'll happen. Michael Hegner says, it seems that we're back to yellow paper journalism again. We'll see. Peter Hamby with the usual haiku, dirty cinema, prefers the world as a waste. And enjoy the show. Well, that's pleasant at the end. And Wasabi Dragon and the Bubba Master are with us on Twitch, so that's awesome. And Wasabi Dragon, thank you for the gifted subs. Back on TYT, Cenk and John with you guys. We got more crazy news.
Oh, it's crazy. Okay, let's jump into some crazy. Marjorie Greene and Lin Wood have two things in common. They both love Trump and they both love grift. And that means that at some point they're gonna have to duel each other for who's more supportive of this whole Trumpian thing. I wanna show you a video. This is Lin Wood attacking Marjorie Greene for, I kid you not, being a communist.
In my opinion, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a communist. If Marjorie Taylor Greene running around saying impeach Biden, that says that Biden won. He didn't. And you would never impeach him with a communist Congress. It's a waste of time. It's all show. A traitor will come at you as a patriot. Be careful.
That's a good warning, but it seemingly applies as much to him as to her. His audience probably won't pick up on that, but anyway, he's out there. He's trying to get people to give him money. He's trying to find right-wing causes to attach himself to. She is a massive supporter of President Trump. Lin Wood would say that he is too. So why wouldn't they fight eventually? She, in trying to remove Biden from office, is proving that she's a traitor to Trump. Also, she's a communist, although he never explains in that video exactly why that is.
They never bother explaining. Later we're going to show you Charlie Kirk saying that Chuck Schumer and corporate Democrats are trying to take away private property.
They have so much of it.
How? Why? They're the defenders of wealth in this country. That is a correct criticism. Saying they're trying to take away private property. Marjorie Taylor Greene is wackadoodle, and there's 1,000 critiques you could have of her. Being communist ain't one of them, okay? And partly because she doesn't even understand it. We've showed you other clips where she has no idea what socialism is, communism is. She has no idea what capitalism is. And so maybe he could have put together some convoluted logic, like she thinks the government helping people is a good thing, and she calls that capitalism, when actually it's socialism, right? And you could have gone in that direction, but he's like, no, if you want to impeach Biden, that means you're a communist. What? Okay, they're not even trying to make sense anymore because they don't have to. Their audience has given them carte blanche. Logic not required, facts not required. You never showed one piece of evidence that the election was stolen. We all believed you anyway.
Yeah.
Lin Wood sometimes refers to himself as Jesus, Moses, etc. Did they require proof of that?
No.
I assure you they didn't.
No.
Okay. But I love this fight. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to join the fight here.
Yes, it goes back and forth in some weird ways. So what is his actual beef with her? Well, acknowledging that Biden won, even though she totally doesn't do that. But also, for weeks, Lin Wood, who has over 800,000 followers on his Telegram channel, Jesus, has been complaining about what he perceives as Greene's lack of effort to force a forensic audit in Georgia, similar to the one that has just concluded in Arizona. So he wants an audit like they had with the cyber ninjas or whatever. So there's a few issues with that. One, it showed that the election hadn't been stolen. But of course, they're not going to acknowledge that. Two, what part would Marjorie Greene have in getting the Georgia state government to do a forensic audit of the results? She's a congresswoman with the federal government. She has nothing to do with that. And third, she was elected in that election. Now, maybe now he would do the thing I'm about to say, but no one on their side who says that the Georgia elections stole the result for Biden. It was not a reliable election, it was stolen. None of them say, thus she's not a real congresswoman, even though she was elected in the same election. So even just pragmatically, why would she audit the results of an election that gave her the position in your mind to audit the results, even though she can't because she's not serving in Georgia state government? None of it makes any sense.
Yeah,
but it's enough to label her a communist, of course.
But so let me tell you why they're doing it, and then we'll get to her attacks on him.
Yes,
because this is a super fun catfight. So it's a cycle of regrifting. So it happens on almost every front because the ultimate grifter has to prove to everyone that they are the only one who's looking out for them. So that means they not only have to attack the other side, but eventually they, by the nature of their grift, they must attack their own.
To grow.
One, to grow because, hey, you got to pick a fight with someone bigger or more powerful to get attention. And if you're online, because the algorithm forces you to, because you want to get into their
drama and all that, yeah.
Right. You use the titles, thumbnails. If they're doing videos, it gets into their videos, etc. In this case, it's mainly the titles and thumbnails, etc. And it probably applies to the Telegram algorithm and the Twitter algorithm, and etc. as much as it does to the YouTube and Facebooks. So there's like the mechanics of why they do it, and then there's the overall idea. But then one other part of it that's important is they have to convince everyone they are the only true fill in the blank, the only true conservative, the only true Trump supporter, the only true steal the election or whatever the hell the thing is.
Pro-Trump fascist.
Right, exactly. And then on the left, of course, is the guy who does that, right? I'm the only true progressive, and that's how I prove it by attacking all other progressives, right?
Ken Klippenstein, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely Ken
That guy's
Klipp.
an ass.
Yeah, so, or Bernie Sanders, either way. So, and because it's the nature of the grift, because if you are giving to Amy Goodman, well, then you're not giving to Jimmy Dore. Oh, did I say I didn't? Anybody? It could have been anyone. Could have been anyone.
I do think it's Ken, but
right.
Whatever.
Okay, and so that's why you'll say Amy Goodman's CIA. I mean.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Okay, I forget if she's a CIA.
I think she's 004 actually.
Yeah, it could be.
It's an MI thing.
Yeah, she's CIA adjacent. She's doing CIA talking points. Amy Goodman. Okay.
No.
Okay. All right.
No.
I mean, that's my point. It's insanity. It's to get the folks who are most angry and most detached from logic and facts. In this case, on the right wing, you have a target-rich environment. On the left, it's a sliver. On the right wing, it is the majority of the party, right? So they're trying to say, hey, don't give money to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Don't support her. She's raised more money than anyone in Congress, right?
She has, yeah.
Lin Wood is saying, give me the money. And that's why they get into money next.
That's true.
Right, and you'll see how that plays out. Come be my supporter, give me money, follow me on Telegram, etc. That's why he has to attack Marjorie Taylor Greene and she has to attack back.
Yeah, he says you can't trust her with your money. She says the same, and I find both of them very persuasive. Anyway, so she has a multi-pronged attack. So she says this first. She tweeted, he lifts up his Bible high and lies and lies and lies. He's not one of us. And he used a child being attacked by Marxist BLM. Read all the way to the end. So it's a thing about how he used Kyle Rittenhouse. So she's referring to him as a child. He's a multi-murderer, but I guess he's a child in this particular case. Here's the thing. She's totally right. He did use Kyle Rittenhouse, but that, like, you are using it too. You're using it as a sign of how pure you are, that you want to defend him against Marxist BLM or whatever. And she also tied it in with January 6th. She said, and you have to ask yourself, if Lin Wood has fought so hard against the election like he claims, even encouraging people to go to the Capitol on J6, why isn't he a target of the J6 witch hunt? The J6 committee is only focused on Trump's biggest defenders, but not Lin Wood. And I love that because look, the takeaway for a Trump fan from that is Lin Wood isn't supportive enough of Trump, who secretly won the election. But look at what she has to do inside of it. For someone as dim as her, it's actually pretty sophisticated. She She says Lin Wood even encouraged people to go to the Capitol, something she will never say that she did because she doesn't want to be implicated in January 6th, but she definitely wants all the people who support it to still like her. So she says they hate me more than him, even though I totally wasn't involved. Totally wasn't involved, but like if you were involved, you should like me because they hate me, the people that are against January 6th, which I didn't support, but I'm also the biggest supporter of. It's a very nuanced thing for people without much natural mental ability to try to thread that needle. I'm not saying anything specific, but you should like me if you like that thing that I did not support.
Okay, so there's two things that I love here. One is there's like two movies that they're accidentally referencing. One is Inception. It's a conspiracy theory inside a conspiracy theory, right? Oh, how come Lin Wood is not being investigated by the J6 committees? Now, he says he was in favor of January 6th, but yet he's not being investigated. What if he was the, so which leads to the second movie, Princess Bride. Or what if it's the cup in front of you? And this is the conversation they're having on the right wing. Now, the serious part. They are literally having a debate over who supports the racist murderer more. That's what the GOP has devolved into. Kyle Rittenhouse went to Black Lives Matter with a weapon to a Black Lives Matter protest looking for trouble. He found the trouble and he shot and killed 2 people and he's up on murder charges. And so here's a guy who went because of racial animus and then killed 2 people. And these are 2 leaders in the Republican Party. He got a decent chunk of the vote in South Carolina when he ran for GOP chair in South Carolina, a big chunk. She's a United States Congresswoman, and she raised the most money because people love her in right-wing circles.
Yeah.
So 2 leaders in the Republican Party arguing, no, I like the racist murderer more than you like the racist murderer. And then they're having a fight over that. That's today's Republican Party.
Yeah. By the way, Jang, I really liked your idea about the Inception thing. If this was a movie, do you know how it ended then? Okay, so you see Marjorie Greene, the camera zooms into her skull, and you see a mouse on a wheel, and the wheel's spinning, it's spinning. It looks like it might stop, and the screen goes black. You never find out if the wheel stops spinning.
Think about it.
Think about it. Anyway, we got one more story. It's gonna be a little bit of a weird transition from that to this, but we've got something very serious that we have to make sure that we get to. So, do you want to give the warning first, or should we go right into it?
Well, look, it's graphic.
Sure, it's graphic. So we're gonna play you a video in just a second, but understand it is graphic in nature as we roll this.
All right, come. Time to get out of the car.
I'm not getting out. I just told you I'm a paraplegic. I cannot get out.
I do not want to have to. I do not want to have to.
Can you call your white shirt, please?
I will.
If you pull me out of here, you better respect.
So here's the thing. I'm gonna pull you out, and then I'll call a white shirt because you're getting out of the car. That's not an option. You're getting out of this car, so you can cooperate and get out of the car, or I will drag you out of the car. Do you see your 2 options here? Now, what would you like to do, sir?
I would like for you to call your white shirt.
I will when I'm done. Get out of the car.
Come on, bro.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Listen.
Get out of the car.
I am a paraplegic, bro. You can hurt me.
Get out of the car.
You can hurt me, bro.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
What y'all doing, bro?
Dude, you're making this work.
I'm a paraplegic, bro. I'm trying to tell you that I got help getting in the car. Y'all can hurt me. They can hurt me.
Get out of the car.
Bro, I'm a paraplegic. Ow.
You have to get out of the car.
Ow.
Get out of the car.
Somebody help. Somebody help.
Stop right here.
Somebody help.
Stop.
Somebody help.
Stop.
Someone help.
Stop.
So are y'all recording this?
Stop.
Somebody help. I'm a paraplegic.
Stop.
They are doing the unjust thing to me. Somebody please help me.
Stop.
I gave y'all everything y'all asked for.
Fine. Cooperate.
Can y'all call the white shirt?
You call whoever you want.
Can y'all call the real police, please?
You're about to get tased, dude. I ain't playing with you anymore.
Ow.
The man that you see in the video, who's a paraplegic, is Clifford Owensby, who was stopped by police officers on September 30th as he was driving away from what police say was a suspected drug house. Because of Owensby's past felony drug and weapons history, officers wanted a police K9 to conduct a free air sniff of the vehicle to determine if there were illegal drugs inside. Now, he asked for a white shirt to show up. This is a police supervisor. Look, I don't know exactly what's going to end up coming out as a result of this investigation. But what I do know is he knows that he's been stopped. All he wants is someone who apparently understands that you cannot ask a paraplegic to step out of a vehicle that doesn't make any sense, and that dragging them out, including by their hair, perhaps makes even less. And they would not do that. It wasn't just that they were gonna get him out of that car, but they were gonna get him out on their timeline if they had to literally drag him out and throw him on the street.
Yeah, so first let's get rid of the distraction. The first thing they always do is he innocent or not? It's irrelevant. Even if, first of all, they found no drugs or weapons on his car. But even if they had, that's not how we should be detaining people in America. So it doesn't mean you let him go. We have to say this 1,000 times, even though it's so obvious. It means you're a patient, you call in other people who can do it, you have him under surveillance if you're seriously concerned about him, right? And then you do it the right way. But in America, violence is the only answer for the police. So in other countries, there is a quote unquote right way. We've shown you tapes of it in Northern European countries, in Japan, in the UK, etc., where they're patient. I've seen the UK police disarm guys with machetes swinging wildly at police officers, and they do it without any weapons, and they're amazing and they're patient, right? Our guys are, to be fair to our cops, and it's a funny thing to say, but we teach them to be brutal and to be violent and to never take anything as an excuse. The first thing you teach them in police training is you have to assert your authority. Don't let anybody question your authority because it'll devolve into chaos. Now, if they were going to put together a committee and they were going to have a conversation about it for 3 hours, yeah, I could see how that could be an issue, right? But no, we're not asking for that. We're asking for what police do all across the world. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
But for us, we train the cops. Oh, they're paraplegic? Then you drag them out by the hair.
Yep.
They drag the guy out by his hair. When you're having to do that, does it not occur to you that maybe he wasn't lying and he can't use his legs, and that's why you're having to drag him out by his hair?
Yeah.
And then later they drag him on the street because he can't use his legs.
Yep.
And so did it not occur to you as you were dragging him on the street, hey, you know what? Maybe we should put him on a curb. We should pat him down, but wait for a professional that knows how to deal with this, because obviously we don't, right? No, it never occurs to them that because their bosses never told them that. What they told them is, if you've got a citizen, especially if they're black, especially if they're poor, do not give them any benefit of the doubt on anything. Just kick the crap out of them until they listen to what you say. What if they can't hear? Who cares? We just did a story last week about a guy who is deaf. He can't hear the commands. How dare you? You're questioning my authority. I will assault you, right? You don't have legs or are paraplegic. Doesn't matter, because the only thing we've ever taught our cops is brutality. That's why I tell you the most important police reform isn't any specifics. It's actually changing the culture of policing, that brutality is not the answer.
Yep. Yeah, and the only other thing I want to say is it might sound as if we're trying to launch into a national conversation about whether humans suspected of having committed a crime deserve to be treated with any dignity or respect. But we're not. The right wing does think that. They just think it about a very narrow segment of the population. This might seem like a weird comparison, but do you remember when Roger Stone was arrested? And the right wing cried about how they sent so many cops. The cops had guns. Why were they doing this? Why is it necessary? Well, they were arresting him for crimes that he was suspected of having committed. So they thought that he wasn't brutalized, he wasn't thrown on the ground or dragged by his hair, or they didn't like take his penguin hat off and throw it in the bushes or whatever. They treated him perfectly nice. There were just a bunch of them, and for the right wing, that was unacceptable. So there are definitely people that they think the cops should treat with respect, even if they believe that they've committed a crime. It's just not regular people like you and I. Certainly not any random black person. Those people just don't deserve the respect that high class, dignified people like Roger Stone deserve.
It's not just that, John. January 6th, that's where I thought you were going with it. They're saying, how could they possibly shoot Ashley Babbitt when all she had done was broke into the building, trespassed, and was part of was the first person in a literal mob who were chanting to execute the vice president. How could they do that to this police violence? They never. How about all the black people they've been killing that we showed you all the time, who were unarmed, didn't do anything wrong, etc. Oh yeah, but they're black.
Yeah. That's what.
So that's the right wing in this country. We got to live with them. We got to somehow deal with them. But what we don't have to tolerate is our own government and our own taxpayer money paying for cops who are taught to brutalize us.
Yeah.
It's totally unacceptable. Yeah. Okay, we are out of time, although we have got to do that Charlie Kirk story somewhere. All right, so
I think that is a great bonus episode story.
All right, well, members, you're gonna love the bonus episode today, apparently. All right, we gotta take a break. Thank you, John. Everybody check out Damage Report.
Nina Turner tomorrow. Tune in, it's gonna be fun.
That's right, tomorrow's big day. Start your day with Damage Report, go to Indisputable, go to the conversation where I'm gonna talk to Michael Cohen about Trump financial dealings.
Being an animal.
Right, and then Anna's back tomorrow on the main show.
Nice.
Okay, so JR and I'll come back. We have amazing stories for you guys, including, yes, Civil War. That talk has definitely begun. We'll be right back. Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories. Gee, I wonder why we didn't get $15 minimum wage. Because they're all raising money from the guys who don't want to increase the minimum wage.
And we play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The Republicans say we will serve our corporate masters at all costs, including killing democracy, yet here we are. Where else do you hear that? You hear that on NBC, on ABC, on CBS. You hear it nowhere.
They don't want to talk about money in politics because it's really hard to pass judgment when your media organization is funded by fossil fuel companies.
The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, the defense contractors, the Wall Street, or the big pharma. And we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed.
The president labeled him a son of a bitch.
I don't think it's good to be a distraction to your team.
To stand proudly for the national anthem.
You know, some of these people need to move to another country.
Well, you shouldn't be playing, you shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country.
The president is put in place to amplify the racists in this country.
Black men and boys are killed at an exponentially higher rate than white men and boys, as outlined by PBS. Black people are most likely to be killed by police, found mappingpoliceviolence.org. Personally, my biggest gripe is not saying how sports and politics have been attached at the hip. From the jockey syndrome, to the Negro Leagues, to Tommy Smith and John Carlos, Muhammad Ali, to modern day and everything in between. This is not an escape. It is a reflection of reality and a reflection of the times.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
What do? I get charity every single year.
Says who?
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and JR Jackson with you guys.
Yo.
All right, we got lots of news, including a lot about Civil War. So,
oh my God,
JR, take it away.
Let's do it. Ashley Babbitt, the Capitol rioter who broke in and was a few steps away from actually getting to Congressman from that one barrier of the window that was broken when she was shot and killed on January 6th, apparently had a birthday over the weekend. So former President Donald Trump took this opportunity to submit a video to an event that they were having in Texas called Texas Loves Ashley Babbitt Rally. So he took part in that. He submitted a video congratulating, thanking, and really turning her into the martyr that many conservatives under Trump would like her to be. So let's take a look at things he had to say at this event.
It is my great honor to address each of you gathered today to cherish the memory of Ashley Babbitt, a truly incredible person. To Ashley's family and friends, please know that her memory will live on in our hearts for all time. She defended our nation overseas, including in Iraq, to fight in the war on terror. On that horrible day of January 6th, Ashley arrived at the United States Capitol. She was shot and tragically killed. Today would have been her birthday. Happy birthday, Ashley. Happy birthday. We're looking at you and you're looking down on your family and on us. Together we grieve her terrible loss. There was no reason Ashley should have lost her life that day. We must all demand justice for Ashley and her family. So on this solemn occasion, as we celebrate her life, we renew our call for a fair and nonpartisan investigation into the death of Ashley Babbitt. I offer my unwavering support to Ashley's family. Like all Americans, you deserve a fair process, you deserve answers, and you deserve justice. Thank you for being here. God bless you, God bless Ashley's incredible memory, and God bless America.
So there you have President Trump doing the things that we've already seen happening with the Ashley Babbitt situation. There's a martyr situation that they're trying to build here. And as it continues to build, we're starting to see more and more, I guess, serious and heartfelt and deep thoughts. And honestly, building her up as a person throughout her entire life. It sounded like a State of the Union type of speech where they have like someone who wasn't doing anything, someone who was a victim, maybe someone who got some help, someone who advanced and achieved something else in life against all odds, an inspirational story. You would forget that we're talking about someone who broke into the Capitol along with her fellow insurrectionist and was the one, after a window was broken out and someone screamed gun, 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 continued to climb through the window, and you could actually see elected officials on the other side of that door. You would think none of that happened based off of what we just saw him say right there about her life and her successes and what she's done for the country. None of that was brought up. And then she walked through a window after breaking into the Capitol to defend the lie that I had been telling about the election, which brings me to why he's even doing this, because it's about him. Now, her family can grieve and mention the person that they lost. But someone who takes advantage of it, it's also a slap in the face to her family. The people who probably are the ones that should grieve about what happened when they knew her Anyways, it just struck me that way and annoyed me. But SiriusXM host Dean Obadala, he also saw some similarities about the way Trump is approaching this martyrdom issue with the way someone else did. So let's go to some of those graphics that he tweeted out about. Dean did write, Trump is making Ashley Babbitt into MAGA's version of the Nazis' Horst Wessel. He was killed in 1930 by Hitler's political enemies. Hitler and Goebbels made him a martyr for the cause. It inspires the base to sacrifice their lives for the leader. He continued on, Trump continues to make Ashley Babbitt a martyr for his cause because she was killed waging Trump's coup. This is exactly what Hitler did after his failed 1923 coup. He honored those killed in the coup attempt to inspire more people to wage violence on his behalf. And he also included a picture of Hitler talking to a widow of one of the people that was a part of Hitler's his Nazi party member who died. So it's these similarities come, and honestly, a lot of times I do get frustrated by the comparisons to Hitler, and both sides of the aisle do it. And in some aspects it's true, in some aspects it's not. Other times they're over hyping it, or just there's a little aspect. This seems to kind of hit on the nose here for me. But it doesn't always have to be. Therefore, all these folks were Nazis. No, I'm sure many of them may have some feelings about Nazis that aren't all that negative, but. This seems to kind of make sense to me.
Yeah, so look, first of all, you can say Hitler, you can say almost any extremist, including, by the way, Muslim fundamentalists. So what do? They glorify the martyrs. So, you did a suicide bombing? Well, you're the biggest hero of the revolution. And their families are celebrated, money is sent to their families. And what's Trump doing? Celebrating her family. She's a martyr and hero of the revolution. And I say Islamic fundamentalists, but you could relate Tamil tigers, kamikaze fighters, all suicide bombers, fighters, etc., are celebrated as martyrs. And Hitler did the same thing. Now, why? Because exactly what Dean is talking about here. Inspire others to do likewise. Remember, losing your life for the leader is a great idea. That's why we joke around about, the Islamic fundamentalist terrorists, which is a tiny fraction of Muslims. I want to clarify that every time we talk about it. But we joke around about it like, if somebody tells you to put on a suicide vest, you say you first. It's simple, right? If it's such a wonderful, glorious thing to do, why don't you do it first, right? Oh no, you want to get me to lose my life for you. And that's exactly what Trump is doing. And it's the same extremist methodology that they all do. And so that then leads to the question of, wait a minute, Trump said in his speech that he was going to walk with them to the Capitol.
Sure did.
But he didn't do that, did he? He went to the safe confines of his bunker in the White House, and he watched it on television, and then egged them on Twitter. Still was, even though he knew Mike Pence's life was in danger, still doing negative tweets about Pence, still telling the US congressman, hey, you better listen to the rioters, etc. So he's egging them on, but from a very safe distance, like all extremist leaders, right? They're never in the battle. They're always in the back going, oh, you die for me. Go ahead, right? And so also, the people on January 6th, they wanted the name of the cop who did the shooting, right? They were like, oh my God, we gotta know, you gotta name names, it's outrageous. Okay, fair enough. And I said, look, at some point the cop does need to come forward, because anytime you have a police shooting, doesn't matter for what reason, we should have accountability, and they are government officials, and we're taxpayers, etc. Okay, fair enough. I'm curious if they have the same accountability for the coward men right behind Ashley Babbitt, who pushed her through first, full well knowing that the police were telling him, do not come, we have guns, this is where the legislators are. You're talking about executing the legislators. We're not going to allow that. You've already breached 8 different security perimeters, and you're a giant mob, and you're chanting about murdering people. Do not come. And the cowards behind Ashley Babbitt said, why don't we push her through first? You want to name the names of the people who were behind Ashley Babbitt? The men who were like, I don't want to do it. Let's get, it's this woman. She's willing to do it. Let's put her through the window. Oh, she got shot. Whew. Okay. Which men were those? We're talking about cowards, right? All right. So I wanted to be clear about that. Now, back to Ashley Babbitt. She believed that they should attack the Capitol it wasn't like she got caught up in the moment and she was getting a hot dog, and next thing you know, we're trying to end democracy, and she gets riled up, and oh my God, how did she get into the front? I don't know. No, she has statements all over the internet, including this one. She said on Twitter right before her death, nothing will stop us. That turned out to be incorrect. They can try and try, but the storm is here and it's descending upon DC in less than 24 hours. Dark to light. The dark to light is a reference to QAnon. She believed in the QAnon insanity about satanic cults that were leading the American government. So here's a person believing that they're fighting Satan and willing to, say that the storm is going to hit the Capitol, and she's part of the storm that hits the Capitol, and and cops die, etc. And now the Republicans have her as a hero of the revolution. Kyle Rittenhouse, a guy who's deeply racist, went with weapons to a Black Lives Matter protest, looking to get in trouble. He did. He murdered a couple of people, and they have him as a hero. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lin Wood were debating today about who supports a racist murderer more. So that's the state of the Republican Party now.
It's a win-win for them. That's the way it works. So you can push them to do the stuff, they do the stuff. Then you say, oh man, they're doing it for the cause. Not for me, not for my political aspirations, not for me in this bogus re-election bid, Cenk, that he's trying to pull off. It's a constant thing that he's always doing just to get people to be in their place. If it's not the definition of cowardice, I don't know what it is. But again, back to the whole thing about how wild this may be for what we're dealing with right now. Because I do think it's a little bit odd to wonder is this really happening? No, this has nothing to do with the Nazis. This has nothing to do with Hitler. This is not like any terror groups that put people ahead of the leadership to get things done. But you know what? Sometimes you have to take it seriously and listen to people who've studied these historical things and see how much it repeats itself. So there was a moment on Sunday on CBS where Margaret Brennan, she was hosting and she was talking about General Milley's points about what we're looking at on how the things on January 6th were just a warm-up act for what could happen. Now that depends on how we react to it. So I'm gonna go to what she was talking about, how shocked she was to read what some of these similarities could be and how we could really repeat this. Let's listen.
You know, in the book Peril, Robert Costa and Bob Woodward wrote, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, at the end of it, is quoted as comparing the January 6th siege of the Capitol to the Great Dress Rehearsal. You're a Russia analyst, you know immediately what that phrase is, which is what Lenin called an uprising that preceded the revolution. I read that and I said, dear God.
Yeah.
I mean, the general is saying that this is a precursor potentially to further violence. I mean, is this overstating things in a historical sense?
He's not overstating it at all because, I mean, we all saw in real time what happened on January 6th at the Capitol building. And then, people sweeping this away, saying nothing happened here. And the next time around, you get the real thing where people actually do seize those major buildings.
And that's the way it works. So when you actually listen to people tell you what's happening, we've seen it and we complain about it. We'll say, oh my God, we saw it with our own two eyes. We watched the videos, you guys are downplaying it. And it's almost in every week, a weekly discussion about reality versus this fantasy that they continue to create. But there's enough people that believe the fantasy that they'd be willing to do it again. No, we kind of see ourselves from this, and it's such an obvious thing to say, but when you stop and think about it, we see ourselves from this own point of view inside our own brains and bodies and visions. And we don't think anyone else really believes the nonsense that they believe because we know what we just saw. But there are people who believe it and not go with what they just saw in front of them because there's something inside of them that gives them this belief to make Donald Trump their God, make Ashley Babbitt their martyr. And I don't know, at one point before they decide to hang him, want to hang him, Mike Pence, their second in command. So this craziness isn't too far to consider people really going towards because they tried. We can't downplay the fact that they tried.
Yeah, 100%. So look, that reaction by the mainstream media reporter, Mark Brennan in this case, is both good news and bad news. The good news is that, hey, they're beginning to understand the severity of the issue. Yeah, did they not read the same articles we read? Like, Mike Flynn went in, they had a 3-hour conversation where Trump very seriously considered declaring martial law and saying the election is now null and void and we're gonna redo it under military rule. And so you're super late to the party, but thank you for showing up because we need more people to understand the severity of the moment. So that's the good news. The bad news is it's amazing that they don't know it. There she is, a very legitimate, well-respected journalist in mainstream media. And she's like, dear God, like, how is this news to you? And because they've been taught, they've been brainwashed, they've been programmed, the reporters have, that you must call everything even. Like, no, a coup against democracy, or we continue democracy, 50-50. I've been programmed all the way from journalism school through all my career that I must call everything 50-50. So now she gets to a moment where she's like, dear God. You're like, wait a minute.
Said so.
Yeah, look, when the fascists take over, they're not gonna care about your rules. They're not gonna be like, oh no, let's keep going with 50-50. No, it's gonna be 100-0. And they're not gonna, like, you're playing Queensberry rules, this nonsense etiquette that doesn't exist to the fascists. And so, yeah, it's super serious. Look, finally, I actually have some sympathy for Ashley Babbitt because you read up on her life story and you realize, so she came back from the wars, already God knows what kind of trauma she suffered there. It was for no reason. I don't know what she thought of that. Ultimately, but she's for Trump, who pretended to be against the wars. And then she comes back and tries to set up a business here, like a pool supply business with her family. She gets desperate. She takes out one of those scam loans, which all across the country, you all know it if you're poor, middle class, and it's charging her 169% interest. Jesus. Of course she's gonna go bankrupt. You can't pay that. And so then here comes a demagogue like Trump saying, oh, it's the immigrants, it's the Mexicans, it's the Democrats, it's the Satanists that are doing it, right? And no, it's the payday lenders that charge you the 169% interest. But Trump likes those guys because they're his donors. So he doesn't want you to blame the payday lenders that ruined your life. Instead, he gets you to hate Mexicans and Democrats and pretend that they're working with Beelzebub. And then you go and die for him. And at the end, he goes, atta girl, way to be. Now everybody, be more like Ashley. Go and die for me for something that never made sense in the first place. Because it's all about him and his grotesque need for power. Understand what it is. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, it only gets worse. Now, as we warned you, we were not among the dear God crowd. We told you they're going towards violence, and now more and more Republicans are saying it loud and proud. We'll show you that when we return. Back on TYT, let's go to Twitch first. Atomic Elbow says 16 months of TYT with Bozo Bucks. CK Progressive says, happy whatever holiday you're celebrating today, whether it's Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, or if you're in Canada, happy Thanksgiving Day. That's a bridge too far. Canadians, reel it back in. Thanksgiving's in November. Okay, just get it right. And if you didn't see Popovich's comments, the great Spurs coach, about Columbus Day, you should check that out. He's so badass. I've always loved him, and I had no idea what his politics were. And then when I found out his politics, I was like, yes, I knew it. Okay, you know why? Because he's really smart. Morning Demon writes in, on this Thanksgiving, what is with you Canadians? Anyway, love you guys. On this Thanksgiving, I'm thankful for TYT and 2 Strong Coffee. All of a sudden, I'm right back on your side. All right, you know we got new flavors, Citrust, that's more fruit flavor. We've got espresso, we got 2-pound bags, that's how I order in bulk. 2strongcoffee.com/TYT, and check it out, okay? Thank you for the
People
plug.
have a Canadian syrup, what's the famous Canadian
Maple, Canadian maple.
Canadian maple syrup brand a flavor.
Oh, we got to.
I mean, since you guys are so awesome up there.
Yeah, 2 Canadian something. We'll figure it out. Brown fried rice. By the way, if you celebrate Thanksgiving today, you're 2 Canadian. Brown fried rice is a new sub. Doc Wagon Dragon gifted a sub. Thank you. R Stone, back to him on YouTube Super Chat, says that video should incriminate Donald Trump. That video should serve as how the law and order president truly backs the blue. That's right. These people were attacking cops, and Trump loved it and thinks they're heroes. But that irony has always escaped the right wing. Shocking. Late Bloomer makes a good point. He sent her to her death. How dare you even speak her name? But that's Donald Trump for you. A lifetime supply of Staples writes in, I saw 2 stickers at a truck stop, one saying they hate people who get offended, and the other being offended by those who don't stand for the anthem. I love that. That's so awesome. And it's true. They're like, look at the fragile left. Okay, war on Christmas Day said happy holidays to me. Okay, John Weber writes in, if 300,000 blue state work from home people decided to move to red states in substantial numbers, how many US Senate, US House governor seats could they flip? Well, if they could flip, no, all right. If a woodchuck could chug wood, no, don't move anywhere for that. Just live your life, live your best life. You don't need to go to Alabama. California is awesome, just stay here, everything's gonna be fine. We're gonna win all those states eventually. Marlene Atlas just became a member, you're awesome. We're going to the, speaking of members, let's go there. Vegas Mike says, she shouldn't have lost her life if you hadn't been lying to her about phony election fraud for 6 months before you caused her death. Good point. And Dragon with the girl tattoo about the cop abuse said, you could see the hand throttle and the brake in the car. That would prove that he's a paraplegic. They dragged him out by his hair anyway. Our members, as always, too smart. We'll be back. TYT, Jenga JR with you guys. News.
Go. There's a story. It's based in the way the news media also responds to some of the crazy violent rhetoric we're seeing from MAGA types. So let's jump right into this now. So MSNBC's Gary Grumbach, he went to Trump's rally over the weekend in Iowa, and he got a chance, like many outlets do, to speak with some of the supporters outside, inside, and around the rally itself, and got an idea of where at least this one particular woman's mindset is when it comes to the civil war in the country. Let's listen.
I think the Republicans are about as weak as they possibly could be in Congress. You have maybe 6 that are worth their salt. Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, and 2 or 3 others. The rest of them are just the same as the Democrats. They've been there too long. They're establishment. They don't care about the American people because they're in their elite little tower. And so we're just sick of it, you know, and we're not gonna take it anymore. I see a civil war coming. I do. I see civil war coming.
So she named a couple of names on the Republican side that are only worth their weight in salt, or whatever that term is, and said they're all just like the Democrats. I would have loved to hear her name which Democrats are the ones that are all establishment and that only want to work for the establishment and their donors and don't do anything for the people. I would say AOC, people like that, and then get a chance to really find out who she's talking about. Anyway, that would be a follow-up question. Anyways, so she did say that oh man, you know, we need to start a civil war. Another question, how does that start? I always wonder this, how does that faction break up? We read all these, they don't, but people would read stories about the Civil War in America before and how that came together and how the factions broke up and what it was based on, and there's the leaders from this side and leaders from the other side. Where would the leaders break up? Where would people then, I've asked this question, I think it was on TDR. So how does the Civil War start? Random lady in Iowa. Why does it start? And then who decides to just let's have this big battle in the middle of the country because you're upset? It doesn't make any sense, but anyway, that's beside the point. Grumbach then was asked a follow-up question when he was reporting about this situation with the lady there, and he had this to say, his reaction to how they're talking about civil war.
Is that an anomaly, or are you getting a sense that this is what some people all across this country are thinking?
You know, one of the questions I asked some of these folks were, do your friends think this way? Do your neighbors think this way? And they all said yes. And so I think it is really important to get out of Washington, get out of New York, and come to these places in the middle of the country where you are hearing a lot of this.
So you got to come to these places in the middle of the country to hear them say what we just heard them say. And then what? Is it convincing? Is it the majority of the country? Is it true that that these Republicans are all working with Democrats and they're all establishment? Why? Why do people, who's the people? Is it politicians? Is it media people? Is it people who live on the coast to come to the middle of the country and then stand in the middle of that rally and go, why? Then what?
Yeah. Well, JR, you're assessing the correct problem here, which is coming both from the voter there and from the reporters too. So let me break it down. The first part of her answer is just a little bit longer video, but you saw some relevant section of it there. She starts out in a way that isn't wrong. She talks about how the majority of the Republican Party is the establishment and they live in an elite tower, etc. That's actually true. The Mitch McConnell camp, which is by far the biggest camp in the Republican Party, is not populist. They're corporate Republicans. But she misinterprets that because conservative media has led her to misinterpreting it as, hey, they're not working for who? Who do they logically work for? The people who sign their checks. No, they're not working for their corporate donors because everyone in right-wing media is financed by those same donors. So they have to trick her and say, oh, they're working with the Democrats. Now, by the way, that's not overly wrong either because there's a whole wing of the corporate Democratic Party is the corporate Democrats, and that's the largest wing of the Democratic Party. But who are they working with? Well, people like Charlie Kirk say they're all trying to end private property. Someone else in the right-wing circles in the news today said they're all trying to become communists. Why would corporations donate money to Republicans and Democrats to take away their property and their rights and their money? Now, do you think that makes more sense? Or do you think it makes more sense that they gave them money so they could make more money by capturing the government and instituting crony capitalism, where both the Republican and Democratic corporate stooges work for their donors? That makes way more sense. But the right-wing media doesn't want you to know that because they get money from the same exact donors. Now, mainstream media, unfortunately, same thing. I mean, look at this. That's on MSNBC. And so they're sitting there going, oh, you should go, we should go outside the country, outside the coast and check out what the real people say. Yeah, no, first of all, really schmucks? I mean, we've been saying that for 20 years on TYT. And I remember doing a video in Ohio in the 2016 election when we were there to cover the Republican primary going, oh no, Trump's gonna win. I was telling you this on the show. Here we are in Ohio. There's no Hillary Clinton signs for miles and miles, hours and hours. Everybody's pro-Trump. And because we talk to real people, by the way, real people are not just right-wingers. We talk to real left-wing people. We talk to real independents. And yes, the elite media in this country are so inside their bubble. They've never met a real person in their lives. They're like, it turns out that people outside of Washington and New York do not agree that the rich should get everything and that corporations are demigods. Breaking news, did you guys know that? We should step outside the country every once in a while. But even when they do that, JR, they then think real people are just crazy right-wingers. No, did you know, MSNBC, that there's a giant portion of the country that is populist left? They're called progressives. You argue against them in every primary. You should know us by now. We're a giant chunk of the country. And you guys not only do not know about us, again, except when you have to defeat us, right? But you never even consider us the real Americans. Like whenever they talk about quote unquote real Americans, they're like, oh, we should hear out these people who say we should go to civil war to make sure that minorities don't have the same rights as we do. We should hear them out. How about hearing out the left, you schmucks, on a so-called left-wing channel?
When the protests and things are happening for police accountability and justice in 2020 in the summer, and it was everywhere. Folks who never thought they'd be involved in those type of things, young folks, people of all races were involved in that in all these major cities and smaller cities across the country. So this is MSNBC, as you point out. Did you hear Fox News as they were covering it go? So everyone in Tennessee, Missouri, Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma, Indiana, you guys need to find your way to the coast. Because you know what, I talked to several people there, and you know what they all said? They said they can't believe that the people who are paid to protect citizens are killing them indiscriminately, and when they're unarmed, they're not doing anything based off of who they believe they are and what they should do and think they can get away with. Isn't that outrageous? I think you guys should go to the coast and talk to some of these people and see what they're really thinking, because this is a crazy, huge movement. Did Fox News say that? Did the conservative Fox News say, hey, we got to talk about those libs on the coast because they're still humans? You know what Fox News says about the people on the coast? Burn down their buildings. Throwback to Bill O'Reilly talking about the Coit Tower needs to come down. They're fake Americans. They're trying to bring you down. They hate the country. All of them are rich. And they just want to destroy the country as if we don't live here too. They want to take what you have and hoard it and pocket it for them. Is that really how it works? So you have, even when you think people who are watching MSNBC are like, I'm watching the Lib Network, and then they hear things like that, it's still embedded somewhere in the deep parts of our brain that the real Americans are the ones in the middle of the country that are talking about their guns and their secession when it comes to Texas. Oh, we're gonna leave this country. Why is that the respected point of view? There's a network, one of those crazy radical conservative networks called Real America News or something like that. Does anyone, if you hear that name, think that it's a lib publication or a lib network? No. Because you know, only people who say they're the real Americans, quote unquote, are the conservative folks who think that they have this superiority over everyone else, when everything that they follow and go through doesn't actually come up with anything. We've been following this type of political line and movement since forever. And what has it done for regular folks? What has it done for the people who are complaining, like that lady who wants to have a civil war? You think she's doing great? You think she owns multiple businesses and lives in 3 mansions? No, but she thinks that everyone else does.
Yeah, so last couple of things here. Whenever they say real Americans, that's a proxy for race. They mean white people. I got news for you. People who live in Compton are also real Americans. People who live in Bronx are also real Americans. If you think they're not, you're racist. So let's move on, okay? And no, not everybody who lives in New York and LA is rich. In fact, the majority are poor and middle class. The overwhelming majority are poor and middle class, and they're very, very real, and they're definitely Americans, and only racists say that they're not. Charlie Kirk did a video about that. We're going to do that analyze that in the bonus episode for the members. You can check that out at tyt.com/join. Anyway, and you mentioned AOC. It's funny because they'll say, oh yeah, like if you ask them to name a Democrat that is in the elite towers or whatever, they'll say AOC, which again, makes no sense, because AOC and the progressives are the ones that don't take corporate PAC money. So they're the least corrupted. But they never heard that from Sean Hannity, because Sean Hannity makes $40 million a year from the same companies that give to the corrupt Republicans and the corrupt Democrats. So his job is not only to lie on behalf of Trump and McConnell, but his job is also to lie on behalf of Schumer and Pelosi and make you think the real problem is AOC instead of leadership on both sides. So, and then finally, look, you know, the mainstream media has been a nightmare for this country, supporting the corporate status quo for decades, and they've led to a situation where we don't have universal health care, wages haven't gone up in 40 years, etc. And they never tell you about that, and they never talk about wages never going up. In fact, they fight against you getting health care, etc. But you know, the more you look at it, I know that was a JV crew out there. I have never saw any of those people that we showed there, but it's not about them. They're all little kids, like playing role acting, right? They're like, I am now a reporter, so I have to talk like this. And if you step outside of New York and Washington, you will see the real Americans. Why? Because he learned that when he was a kid, watching Chuck Todd, etc. And now he comes and plays that role. And the anchor's like, oh, this is deeply concerning. I have to act like a robot. Garumph on Civil War, right?
Yeah.
So they're just kids, man. They don't do real news.
And what the conclusions people will get from that is, look, these folks, these real Americans want to have a civil war because they're so upset. How do we stop them from being so upset? We appease them. So we're afraid of what they're gonna do. Again, we talk about the iron fist and telling people what to do in this country. So the underlying message then is they're mad, you should come listen to them, because then once you listen to them, maybe you can work with them. When are they gonna come to the coast and work with us? When are they gonna listen for a second and be like, oh, wait, you mean I pay money into the system and I don't get anything back? Billionaires pay nothing in the system and get more back? This is crazy. You might understand that you agree more with what these crazy libs that want to destroy your country and be communists and socialists and everything in between all at the same time. That makes no sense if they just listen, ironically, but we listen the other way around, and that's why we're still stuck in the same circle of secession and civil war that we keep talking about.
And that's the MSNBCs and none of the people in cable news tell you the actual problems in the country, which is corporate rule. That's why she's frustrated, that's why we're frustrated. Last thing is, guys, violence is coming. I hate it. I'm here to warn you about it. I've now warned you about it over and over again. How did I know that Trump was gonna win the Republican primary? How was I deeply concerned that he was gonna win the general election? Because I can read a poll. When 28% of Republicans say that it's time for violence, when 41% of them say we've got to take the law into our own hands, when every Trump supporter you see at a rally says it's time for civil war, at some point they are going to do violence, lots and lots of it. So, and then the mainstream media reporters will go, dear God, no one could have suspected this. Because why? They're too busy doing this thing they were always taught, 50-50, I can't tell. And if anyone's real, it's the right wing, and it enables them and gets them in a state of mind where they think, if you're gonna take my entitlement away, my entitlement of having more rights than you, well then I'm gonna go to violence. Stop enabling them. This is really serious and they're gonna do it. Okay, we gotta take another break. When we come back, more mainstream media enabling of the right wing in a way that to me is maddening. All right, we'll be back. All right, back during the social break here. All right, programming notes, old school tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern. Everybody can check out the first episode for free. Tonight it's me, Mark Thompson, and Dave Kohler, so it should be a doozy. I'm going to talk about a number of super fun things, including the Chargers game I went to and the knuckleheads that I ran into, which you will love. Okay, so check that out, 10 o'clock Eastern tonight.
Were they real Americans?
Yes, there was real Americans in there. And some fake Americans. I sorted it out. All right, Nina Turner's on Damage Report tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you're checking that out. Dr. Rashad Ritchie is up for Best TV Anchor in Atlanta. So go to tyt.com/Rashad, and at some point you're gonna type in Rashad Ritchie in the box, and you're gonna submit your vote. You could vote once per day, every day, until October 11th, which I think, is that today? So
today?
Yeah, I think you need
the 11th.
Yeah, you need to panic, so this is the last day to vote, go for it. Tomorrow, don't forget to check out 5:30 p.m. Eastern, right before the Young Turks. Michael Cohen, former lawyer and fixer for Donald Trump, on to talk about his finances and why Trump is such a bad businessman. So that should be a super interesting conversation. Now we go to our members. Boat Dragon said about the Lin Wood, Marjorie Taylor Greene fight. MAGA WWE, it's a pretty good description. OJam writes in, it blows my mind that Ted Cancun Cruz has duped so many rank and file Republican voters into thinking he's real. He's the fakest, most duplicitous person I've ever seen. I guess some people are just easy to lie to. It's true, guys, don't forget, I mean, when you see all those right wings, tens of millions of them, that think Ted Cruz is an authentic person, understand how easy it is to manipulate giant percentages of our population. And that is disheartening, but we have to be cognizant of that fact and fight against that because it's real. How can anybody look at Ted Cruz and think he's authentic? But tens of millions of people do, and they think he's more authentic than other politicians, which is amazing. Jesse J says, there were no drones or nukes during the Civil War. What will happen now? No, look guys, I don't want people to get confused. I don't think there's gonna be an actual war where we draw battle lines and Texas launches nukes on New Jersey and New Jersey launches them on Alabama. No, there's just going to be stochastic terrorism, random acts of terrorism by the right wing over and over and over again. And if they do it as Trump, et cetera, are planning, it intimidates the rest of us into accepting them as the so-called leaders, even if they don't win. And it forces us to accept they're basically their coup and ending democracy. That's how fascists take over. But we cannot accept the violence. We must fight back against it, not with violence, but through politics. And Margaret Hofstetter just joined. Thank you, we appreciate it. Hit the join button below or tyt.com/join. All right, back on TYT. I can't help but read just a couple of super chats here. Progressive Canuck, AKA Maple Syrup Dragon, to answer your question, JR, about what kind of coffee we're gonna have, a two-strong coffee in honor of Canadians. Anyway, Cenk, you're just jealous we get turkey up here before you do. Love and support for all the TYT family from the north. Together we all stand, gobble, gobble. Stephen Samuel says, well, you don't think Canadian Thanksgiving is real? That's it. I'm canceling my Newsmax subscription. I love that, you're hilarious. And finally, Late Bloomer said, I spent most of my adult life thinking I was a Democrat. At the age of 64, I found TYT and learned I'm a progressive. Who knew? I'm a late bloomer for a reason. What can I do to spread the message to my fellow boomers? Look, I love that you're open-minded. I love that you saw that. And it's because it's not your fault. Your whole life, mainstream media has been lying to you. So just get people to open their eyes, send them a video or two, talk to them about what we tell you, one person at a time. We can do this, and the great majority of the country is progressive. We just have to let them realize they are, that's all.
Oddly, it's policy based. Once people look at the policies, they start going, oh, I actually agree with that, instead of emotions, and they like to flip it. Everything is flipped on its head. You know, the summer protests, those are the violent folks. People who stormed the Capitol and literally said we want to hang the vice president, they're not violent. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
Let's go, I'm so tired.
Let's do it, what's next?
CNN's chief media chief media analyst Brian Stelter, he's on to something. He noticed that many right-wing and conservative outlets have more opinion-based people on there than they do reporters that are reporting fact. So he really wanted to point that out, and he's seeing this problem within their sphere. But as he's going through it, he found a problem within his own sphere. Let's listen.
CNN, for example, has news bureaus all around the world, all over the place, all the red dots. That's a lot of reporting power. Fox, just to show the contrast, has very few bureaus by comparison. They only have reporters in a couple of international locations. So Fox does a lot less reporting and a lot more repeating. Why is it that right-wing media outlets do so little reporting? Why do they employ so few reporters and so many commentators and columnists and opinion writers? Why aren't there massive American newsrooms dedicated to journalism from a conservative point of view, a reality-based conservative point of view? Why isn't there a New York Times of the right? Why doesn't it exist? Is it because the audience doesn't want that? Or is it because the audience isn't being given a chance to support it?
Where is that New York Times of the right? Because we definitely have a New York Times of the left. I did want to point out, in case you were the only ones who were screaming, going, what? David Sirota did tweet, and he quoted a New York Times of the right, as he put up 4 different headlines from the New York Times, apparently of the left. That's one says, have Democrats pulled too far left? Are Democrats moving too far left? Is there such a thing as too far left? And how far left is too far left for 2020 Democrats? I couldn't make this up.
That is literal headlines from New York Times, and this is apparently the people that are too far left. But JR is slightly wrong about one thing. Put the graphic back up, and I want to put your attention to the third title that he read. You said it as a question, and I understand why. Yeah. No, it's just a statement from the New York Times. There is such a thing as too far left. It's not a question, it's a statement. Okay.
They ask questions and they also give you the answers.
Right.
But apparently, there's some things too far left. Apparently, it's called the New York Times. The New York Times doesn't know it. Anyways, also Andrew Perez also asked the same thing. When will we have a New York Times for the left? And it's pretty obvious that he's joking there, because the New York Times is, I feel like it's one of those organizations similar to like CNN. They don't like those labels and like we're down the middle, so they sprinkle in these types of things. Because a lot of times if they do report facts, everybody in the conservatives will say, oh my God, you guys are being such leftists. It's a shame that the facts make you think that. It's more of an indictment of your point of view. So anyway, first off, there was that point, but we can go to this next one really fast first. We'll discuss all of it. Also, Stelter went on to point out some of the negative effects of the way the news media affects liberals and I guess, versus conservatives, just because of the way that they look at how fake or real the news media is. Let's listen to that shot real quick.
Democrats say they generally trust mainline news sources. Republicans say they do not. The space between them is Grand Canyon sized. And as Matt Gertz of the Liberal Media Matters noted, the thing about that partisan skew is that it means that negative press coverage is much more damaging to Democrats, whose voters will believe it, and less damaging to Republicans, whose voters generally won't believe it. It's an interesting point.
And that's why a lot of times I talk about the fight that we have to have, when I say fight, I mean arguments you have with folks who just kind of don't accept the facts that you give them. So if the media is telling you facts and then certain groups of people go, oh yeah, that's the situation, because maybe I followed up, looked it up for myself, did some background information searching and found out that, yeah, that makes sense. And others, if it doesn't fit their agenda, they just go, that's fake. And who was the one who was pushing that like harder and harder? It didn't start with Donald Trump, but he definitely helped perpetuate it. But it kind of plays for an uneven playing field when it comes to discussing things.
Yeah, so look, first of all, I want to give Stelter credit for even bringing up the issue. And I understand where he's driving at. I think his base assumptions are wrong, but at least he's trying to have a conversation about it. And I think that he's, in his own mainstream media way, making the argument, without saying so, that there's no right-wing version of New York Times because they don't want the facts. Now, therein lies the underlying problem for mainstream media, which is that they know that the right wing doesn't want the facts. The facts are not in dispute on many issues. They are on some, and you could have opinions on abortion, but on the facts, well, there were 60 court cases. Donald Trump did not win the election, period, right? 99% of the world's scientists say that climate change is real and it's man-made, and that the planet is warming and it's leading to more extreme weather, and we see it with our own eyes. That's a fact. You can call it 50-50, but it's a fact, right? But he cannot get himself to say it. He has to do it in the form of a question because they've all been taught you must call it 50-50. You cannot insult Republicans with the truth. Because now, see if Brian's watching this or anybody in mainstream media, because it's not about Brian, they will immediately be repelled by it. Oh, so you guys think you have the facts, but we do. And by the way, we're not like the right wing. You want to call out something we did wrong? And you have facts to back it up, we'll instantly agree. We'll edit it, we'll change it, we'll talk about it, we'll acknowledge it, right? The right wing doesn't have original reporting. Even their so-called reporting is things like Project Veritas, which edits the videos, doctors the videos, and lies on purpose and is meant for propaganda. Because they're not interested in the facts. They're interested in propaganda. It's not complicated. It's not at all complicated. Roger Ailes, when he was setting up Fox News, brazenly talked about how they weren't going to have bureaus. This is not new news. And by the way, CNN and all the rest of cable news treated Fox News as perfectly legitimate for 20 years. Why? Because they thought, hey, maybe I could get a job at Fox News. In fact, Brian Stelter's predecessor, Howard Kurtz, used to be on CNN, kissed Fox News' ass for all that time, and he was rewarded with a job at Fox News right afterwards, right? And that's why nobody on cable news said anything, because of the money, the money, the money. Oh my God, maybe one day Murdoch could hire me. Now they're past it largely. and realizing Murdoch's not going to hire them. And so we're more split. So they're a tiny bit more honest. But now the massive errors. So there is a New York Times of the right. It's called the New York Times. When you talk about economic issues, I don't know why this is so hard. Everybody's always like, is the media liberal or is it conservative? The question is, what issue? If you're talking about rights for African Americans or the LGBTQ community, no, the New York Times is not monstrous. They don't say like the right wing does, gay marriage, that's terrible. Gay people shouldn't be allowed to adopt, having the same rights as straight people, outrageous. So they're not conservative like that. So when you have a critique of them saying they're not monsters, that is correct. On social issues, they generally lean left, which is leaning towards being a decent human being, right? But on economic issues, they're massively conservative. Show me one place where they're progressive. Oh, healthcare, how are you gonna afford that? No way, what, oh, you're telling me the Canadians and the Mexicans afford it? Hell no, it costs $34 trillion. They say it at the New York Times, they say it on CNN. Your buddy Jake Tapper says it more than anyone else. I'm sorry, he says it costs 32 trillion. But they never finish the thought and say it saves 34 trillion. Why? You have giant drug companies that advertise for you and you know it, and you know it. Go ahead, do a segment against drug companies about how they're robbing Americans blind, saying that the government cannot negotiate drug prices. You're not gonna do that segment. Do a story on corruption in politics. Rick Sanchez once did it on CNN. He was fired a couple of weeks later based on some charges that had nothing to do with that. Okay, so good luck, do it every week. I guarantee you get fired. I guarantee it, okay? So New York Times and CNN on economic issues are massively conservative. And look, the last point that we referenced from Media Matters is a really, really good one. And it's the one I made about Afghanistan. When Trump does something wrong, Fox News, Newsmax, etc., they all circle the wagons, go, nope, he's right, he's right, he's right. Even if we have to lie, we don't care. Nobody cares about facts on our side. But when the Afghanistan withdrawal is messy, the right wing piles on Biden, but so does the left wing, so do Democrats, so do mainstream media. And all of a sudden it looks like, oh, Biden is the worst. Democrats are the worst, everybody agrees. But when it's the right wing, nope, we don't agree, 50-50. And that's how you create an uneven playing field where they win and the truth is manipulated against reality. More important than progressive or conservative, it's against reality and facts. All right, we're out of time. Charlie Kirk is against sexual anarchy. What is that? Why is he wrong? And so many other amazing stories just from the members in the bonus episode next. Hit the join button below on YouTube or tyt.com/join. Members, we'll see you there in a minute. So a lot of progressive office holders are doing something fun. I like fun. They're doing the last 2 years in 2 minutes. Okay, we're gonna try it here. First, I wanna let you guys know about the years before that. Hey, remember we started the Just Democrats here on the Young Turks. It was officially launched on our air, basically by you guys. And then we featured AOC, we featured Cori Bush, and Ro Khanna became the first ever Just Democrat incumbent, all on the Young Turks. Now, the last 2 years have been a spectacular follow-up to that. So let's put the 2 minutes on the clock and do this. Young Turks got to start back in 2002, and I think we've been an important part of the progressive movement ever since.